All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Growth Over Fear podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to chat more with Courtney from Surge Flow Breath. And I participated in her breathwork workshop earlier this month at the gym that I work at here in Denver called Lions Den. And I thought it'd be so fun to bring her on and really talk about breathwork, the benefits of it, the different techniques. And so, welcome, Courtney. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yay. Well, Courtney, since I don't know much about you, right? I want to hear more about like how you first got into breath work. Like, what's your background with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was not traditionally in the wellness space. I've been a lifelong athlete and high achiever, whether that was in school or in my career, but I was actually in tech sales for about 8 years. So again, very different the world I'm in now.
Yeah.
But was just doing all the things, working super hard. I was living in London a few years ago, where it is just electric all the time. It's just go, go, go. I wake up, do a Barry's boot camp class, go on the crazy crowded tube, the public transportation, go to a crazy stressful job, and then, go to the pub after and do it all over again. And so I just after years of doing that, whether that was in San Francisco or in London, I experienced pretty extreme burnout, where I could just tell that something wasn't right in my nervous system. And then about 2 years ago, life got a little lifey. I had a pretty big life event that happened that rocked me and jarred me, where I just got to this point where I said, I need to take a big break from everything. I'm not showing up the way that I want to, whether that's in my career, from an athletic perspective, with my friends and family, with my partner at the time. And so I took what I called a self funded sabbatical. My company wouldn't give me one, so which is fine. I didn't expect them to, but I quit my job and then I booked a one-way ticket to Asia, and which is very different, but very needed for me and the stage I was in. And so I started in India. I was there for a month. Then I moved on to Sri Lanka, and then I was in Bali for 2 months. And while I was there, I really got into yoga and breath work. And now I had done yoga, since high school pretty regularly, but it wasn't more of the like meditative type of breath work. It was usually yoga sculpt. Or sorry, of,
Hmm.
of, of yoga. It's more of yoga sculpt, which is a high intensity, more athletic workout. And so when I was doing more of the yoga and got my yoga teacher training, breath work or pranayama is a huge component of it. And so I completely fell in love with that practice. And instead of when I decided to leave Asia, instead of going back into tech like I had initially planned, instead I got my breathwork certification. And now that's what I do
Oh
professionally.
my God. Such a wild ride. And
Hmm.
amazing that you lived, like, took that leap of faith and like courage to like get a one-way ticket. Like, I'm always
Yeah.
so fascinated when people do that. I'm like, oh, that's amazing, but also so scary. And
Hmm.
it sounds like so worth it for you at that time. How long do you feel like it sounded like you had a lot that was kind of building up. It sounded like you were go, go, go in London in your job. How long were you kind of in that phase, you feel like? Like where you just, yeah,
Way
felt a
too
lot of
long.
stress. Okay.
Way too long. Honestly, if I really reflect back on it, years.
Okay.
Um, and I think that's just so common for high achievers. You
Mm-hmm.
just don't really notice it because you're just always going towards the next goalpost.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it could be in your career, it could be in, from athletic achievements, it kind of could be whatever it is. And so it was really years, I think, of this underlying nervous system dysregulation. And
Mm-hmm.
then I just got to a breaking point, frankly.
Yeah. Do you, do you find, like, what do you think it usually takes or what you found with now that you're, doing your breathwork practice? When you're meeting with other people, high achievers, do you feel like they are aware of that nervous system, dysregulation, or do you feel like it takes something, like a life event or, something like that to have that come to show? Or, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Ideally, people, and again, this is ideally, so, not always the case,
Yeah.
but ideally, people start to recognize that there's just areas where they're stuck. And I compare it to feeling like you're hitting your head against a wall, where you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, you're trying to push through things and it's just simply not working. And you may be trying a lot of other stuff too. You may be, really into your fitness and you may be going to therapy and trying to meditate and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but just for whatever reason, it's not working. And so a lot of my clients, they'll either come to me in that regard, they either like know me from a previous world and know that I'm doing this now, or they'll find me on social media or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is and say, okay, I'm starting to resonate with what you're talking about. Like, I think I'm getting to that breaking point, and then we'll start working together. Or I have a number of clients who have hit that breaking point and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, things need to change. Like, how can we work together?
Yeah. I love that. And what is your mission now with behind Surge Flow Breath? Like, how'd you come up with the name? And yeah, what's your mission?
Yeah. So have you heard of what a surge flow is, like
No,
in nature?
no,
Okay.
no.
So I hadn't either. And, of course, starting a business, it's a very
Yeah.
fun process to
Yeah.
figure out your name and how you want to brand it and all of that. And a surge flow is something that occurs naturally in nature. And it's where you have pretty stagnant water, like a creek or something, like, it flows a little bit, but not a ton. And then naturally waves will come
Mm-hmm.
in and create more momentum in that water. So there's actually a pretty famous one that's near the Great Sand Dunes in southern Colorado. So that's a surge flow. It's where there's stagnancy, you're creating waves. And so I view that in my mission of I'm just helping my clients create waves of change, as I say,
Mm-hmm.
in parts of their life where they're feeling stagnant or stuck.
So beautiful. I love the name. I love
Thank you.
that. Yeah, that's really cool. And how do you feel like it impacts or impact you, right? Like your personal healing or growth, the breath work.
I mean, it's been instrumental for me. And, I've done a lot of other healing work over the years. I've done a ton of therapy, which no knock on therapy. I think it's amazing and I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
valuable and so important. But I just felt like there was a lot of stuff that I just couldn't fully deal with and process. And I needed something, as it turned out for me, and now I'm realizing with my clients, something more somatic. And so for me being able to process things in a way where I don't have to talk about it to process it, that's been huge for me from like a almost transformational therapeutic standpoint. But I
Mm-hmm.
think more importantly, your breath is something that you're doing 20,000 plus times a day, probably never thinking about. Ideally, you're not thinking about it, right? That could be a little anxiety inducing if
Mm-hmm.
you're always thinking about your
Yeah.
breath. But it's something that, me just getting to a point where I learned how to breathe correctly, it's helped just my stress so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you brought up the somatic, okay, so something I want to share is that I did like I've never really done therapy. I've done it like twice. And then recently I
Mhm.
did the second one like a few weeks ago. It is hard. It is so hard. Like it's something that's
It's
not
hard.
very natural for me. Like I was like, "Oh, no wonder people say this is so hard because it is."
It's work.
And it's so much work and but yes, there's a time and place and I think it's definitely really useful and really helpful. But my point being like I've always been someone that is very somatic, like with fitness and like working out, like that's been my therapy, getting outside of my head and into my body. So I really
Hmm.
resonate when like you talk about the breath work being like a somatic healing experience, especially to feel safe in your body and just to process
Yeah.
things. So yeah, I just really resonate with that. And for someone new though to this idea, what exactly is breath work?
Yeah. Great question. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So really at the base level, all breath work is conscious awareness of your breath. That's all it is. Now, you then from there can add more layers to it. So there's, really hundreds of different types of breath practices, some of which come from, ancient yogic or Chinese traditions, like pranayama, for example. Or there's more modern Western variations like the Wim Hof method, if you've ever
Mm-hmm.
heard of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but really, all you're changing when you're doing breath work, and this is beyond just functional breathing, like that's a whole other
Yep. Yep.
category of it, of breath work. But once you're like, okay, we're breathing functionally, we're breathing into our diaphragm, all of that. How do I now elicit some sort of change in my body. And really, all that's changing, which is interesting for how many different types there are, is the speed at which you're breathing, the intensity, the emphasis. So if you're, focusing on, more emphasis on the inhales versus the exhales,
Hmm.
whether you're breathing through your nose or your mouth, like that's going to change some things. So there's really not a lot of variables that change within it, but all of them can elicit a very different response in your body, in your mind, etc.
And do you mind touching about the functional breathing just a little bit? And then we can go into the techniques. But yeah, what does like the functional breathing look like? How should we be
Mm-hmm.
breathing on a daily basis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, and by the way, how before I even, took this big break and went to Asia, I had done breath work in a therapeutic sense one time before and
Hmm.
loved it. And then the person I was doing it with, her and I, just naturally stopped working together. So I stopped doing breath work. And then when I was on the tube in London, super stressed out, I'd read a lot as part of my commute. And I was reading the book Breath by James
Yeah.
Nestor. And I recommend that to everybody. It's a life changing book. He breaks down the science in layman's terms and makes it really easy to understand. But as I'm on the tube reading it, I would naturally, because I'm reading about how to breathe correctly, I'd start breathing in through my nose and realized how foreign of a feeling that was for me. I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm a mouth breather and I didn't even know. So we talk about, what does functional breathing look like? There's certain factors. So, first and foremost, breathing through your nose. That's number one. And, if anyone listening doesn't get anything else out of this, it's to breathe through your nose a large majority
Hmm.
of the time. Exceptions to that would be, when you are sprinting in a workout, like the very end of a workout, when you're talking, ideally take some breaks through your nose, but when you're speaking, a lot of times it's through your mouth. Sometimes when you're eating, through your mouth. If you're showing big emotions, like you're crying, really hard to breathe through your nose when you're crying. So you'll do that through your mouth. But
Hmm.
otherwise, breathing through your nose is huge, huge, huge. It has a major, major impact on your nervous system and just being in that calm, cool, collected, easy state that I think most people want to be in a majority of the time. So there's that first. The second piece is breathing low. So, what I mean by that is breathing into your diaphragm. And a lot of people, and myself included, so, no knock to anyone who realizes that they're breathing in a dysfunctional way, but a lot of people, without realizing it, are breathing into their chest. They're not breathing all the way into their belly or their lower ribs. It's just something we get used to, especially if you're at a desk and you're, hunched over, click
Hmm.
clacking away on your computer. Like it's really hard to get that full expression of your diaphragm. So you're breathing into your chest, which just from a stress standpoint, that tells your body that you are in fight or flight when maybe you're not. You're just casually responding to emails. But when you're breathing, particularly through your mouth, into your chest, your body thinks that we need to run away from whatever the threat is when you're not. So those are the two main ones
Hmm.
that I really emphasize with people is through your nose and into your diaphragm. But another component is breathing slow. And so again, this is just functional breathing. When we're doing breath work, we're going to change all of these variables depending on, what you want to elicit in that
Hmm.
small confined window of doing breath work. But breathing slow, instead of having like types of breath, slowing it way, way, way down. The other component is silent. And so if you ever notice that you can hear yourself breathing, or maybe the person who's next to you, that is a pretty good indicator that there might be some sort of dysfunction within the breathing if you can hear it. It should be slow, silent. And the final piece is smooth. So having just a
Hmm.
nice, rhythm to your breathing versus stopping and starting and holding your breath, etc. Again, when we're doing actual breath work, we might be playing with this a bit in a conscious confined time frame. But otherwise, you want to just be nice, slow,
Hmm.
rhythmic, etc.
Yeah, that was really helpful, especially laying it out like all the different factors that are play because again, it's so automatic. We're not thinking about it. And so when
Hmm.
people become aware of like, oh yeah, like how am I breathing on a daily basis? I know for me, again, like I think it was a few years ago when I truly got into all of this and understand
Hmm.
reading the book Breath, again, game changer of a
Yeah.
book. I was like, oh my God. Like I never, you don't think about it unless there's like a, big issue. But once I became aware, I was like, wow, this is a game changer into how
Hmm.
you manage your stress and how you just feel on a daily basis. I know for me, I think it's a big factor into where my stress is at, right? Like I can tell
Yes.
if my sleep isn't well, if I have more stress in my life, I notice the signs of my breathing. Like I obviously, I have my Garmin watch. I can see the data that shows that
Hmm.
too.
Right.
Like just I'm more stressed and like my breathing isn't as like my respiratory rate is maybe a little bit higher. It's so wild.
Hmm.
How much is that? Yeah, that you can look into. Because again, I think a lot of people aren't aware of just how if they're breathing through their nose, if they're breathing through their mouth, if they're loud breathing, or even just like also, if they're breathing low, like through the diaphragm.
Yeah.
A lot of it is a lot of chest breathing and not able to differentiate between the two, like how to
Hmm.
properly breathe. So, going into like beyond that, right? With how would you kind of differentiate between how is breath work used for like meditation and how does it kind of differ in that area? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
how,
absolutely.
yeah.
So meditation is a funny thing, right? And it's so important. It's so good for you just to be fully present and calm your mind. It's really hard though for a lot of people to just meditate. And of course, there's so many different types of meditation. There's silent meditation, there's walking meditations, there's guided meditations, etc. Like you can find what works best for you, but it can be really hard, especially if you're maybe a little high strung, which again, no judgment. That's how I operate. That's how I run, always have, is a little high
Mm-hmm.
strung. And maybe just like whether very stressed out or just like ever so slightly stressed out, it's really hard then to say, okay, to relax, go meditate. Really hard to do because you just might have 100 different open tabs in your brain. And so the idea then of, okay, just I want you to sit there and let your thoughts pass you by is like, oh, my mind is loud. There's a lot of thoughts that are coming through here. So where breath work can help with that in different, types of techniques or like categories of techniques is you can do techniques that are more relaxing. And so, and I, with my company, I call them flow techniques just for ease. And so these are the things that can help you when you're in any sort of stressed or activated state, just to bring you down. And some examples of this, could be just diaphragmatic breathing. So functional breathing, breathing slowly through your nose into your diaphragm. It could be things like box breath, which a lot of people I think I've heard of, where you'd, breathe in, so let's say 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. It's in like in a box for them. That can be really supportive for people. It could be doing slight breath holds. Those can be really relaxing for your system actually. So kind of those flow techniques. It helps you just slow everything down. If you're counting too, that can help. Just having something to concentrate on besides just letting your thoughts pass you by.
Mm-hmm.
That can be really supportive. And then I find for myself, because I do believe in meditation, I think it's amazing. I cannot do it though. Hard stop, cannot do it unless I do some level of breath work
Mm.
first to clear my mind in that way, where it's an active practice to clear
Yeah.
my mind and be present. And then I can sit in silence and stillness. So that's the first sort of category of techniques is just restorative, relaxing type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Then you can get into more activating type of breath work. And so I call these surge techniques. And this is where it starts to get really cool and really fun. Once you're able to get to a point where if you're feeling any stress, any anxiety, any desired or any undesired rather feeling, emotion, mental state, physical state, and you want to bring yourself down, that's where you do the flow stuff. But once you've mastered or comfortable at least with having to do that, Then you can add in some what I call nervous system agility, where you can then use your breath to bring yourself back up. So into a state where maybe you're energized and focused and are just like, yeah, like let's take on that meeting, let's take on that
Mm-hmm.
workout, let's go down that ski hill, like whatever it is. And then you have the breath to support that, whether that's your mental needs, your metabolic needs, whatever it is. And then again, the nervous system agility part is then you can use your breath once you're at that heightened state for a specific reason, like an intention around it. Then you can bring your breath to take you back down into that relaxed
Mm.
state. So then you're not living in this high cortisol, you know, high workout, going down the ski hill, giving a big
Mm-hmm.
presentation state where you're like, all right, I'm buzzy and I'm electric, and you're able to bring
Yeah.
yourself back down. And then the final category would be more of transformational type of breath works from a therapeutic perspective.
Mm.
You're really able to close these stress cycles that live in your body. And it may be things that from when you were a kid, it may be from earlier today, it doesn't really matter. Just whenever you've had some sort of stress or, adverse encounter or experience, or just something that your body is holding on to literally in your fascia, you can use breath work to move that energy and move through it without having to talk about it, which I think is
That's really
so
cool.
valuable.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really valuable. Yeah, thank you for sharing all those. And I love that you call it nervous system agility. I think that's funny. And like I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and also, like you said before, meditation can be really hard for a lot of people, especially if you're in a really stressed out state. I know a lot of clients that I've experienced who've dealt with like anxiety or just have a lot going on. That's the last thing they feel like they can do because they're like,
Hmm.
go, go, go. So I love this idea of breath work where, like you said, you can concentrate and kind of put your attention elsewhere to still help you be present
Hmm.
and
Exactly.
be, yeah, focused. And I love that, again, you can use these different techniques for depending on the feeling that you're having. Do you mind sharing, like, so I know for, yeah, box breathing, you said was one, a great one for like, if you are looking for stress relief or relaxation, for energy, what would that look like?
Yeah. Great question. So, that would be we're putting ourselves into a bit of it's called a sympathetic state or a just activated
Mm-hmm.
type of state. And so that would be we're speeding it up, we're adding more intensity to the breathing. We're just like elevating our heart rate. We're kind of changing the CO2 that's in our body. And so some examples of that could be something called the Kalabati. That's the pranayama or yogic term for it. In the Western world, a lot of times it's called skull shining breath. And this is where you would do really fast, you'd breathe in first, and then you're doing really fast exhales through your nose and a passive inhale. So let me see if sometimes Zoom like kind of cuts off my breathing. So let me know if you can hear this, but what it would sound like.
Okay.
Can you hear that? Sometimes it's a
Yes,
little hard over Zoom.
yes.
Okay,
No, I could tell. Yeah.
so what I'm doing there is it's through my nose. I'm exhaling sharply out. When I'm doing that, my diaphragm, every time I exhale, my diaphragm is snapping in. So
Hmm.
just think about you're like, just squeezing your core every time you exhale. And what's cool about that one is that the inhale is passive. So all you have to focus on is just the exhale. Now, alternatively, another type of breath we can do is called Bastrika pranayama. Some circles call this breath of fire. Side note on breath of fire, and again, just any Western word you hear for breath work, there's no standardization. So, like some people will
Mm.
call some things one thing, others another, and it's the same word. So,
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah.
that clear. But in how I learned it, breath of fire is Bastrika pranayama. And what that looks like is it is sharp, equally sharp inhales and exhales through your nose. So again, I'll demonstrate that a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear that. It's
Yeah,
fast. It's really fast. So
it's
then do
fast.
you do that for a period of time or is it like, because I was trying to remember this is totally different probably from what you did in the workshop, but yeah, do you do it for time or like how many breaths?
It kind of depends.
Okay.
So it, and I practice this all the time, so keep that in
Yeah.
mind, right?
Yeah.
Um, I usually say start with like 30 and then
Okay.
kind of work your way up to like 100 or just until your abs are sore if you don't want
Yeah.
to count. Honestly,
I was gonna
just
say
go
I
until
could
you're
like
like,
feel that. I
wow,
was
this is an
like,
ab workout.
yeah. I like was testing it. I'm like, oh yeah, I can feel my core like coming in and out. Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So really fast. And then because I've done like Wim Hof too, what would you categorize
Yes.
that? That's
So
energy, isn't it? Yeah.
yes, so I would say that's like in the surge
The surge.
category.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, that's just how I describe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, Wim Hof is definitely in that category,
Mm-hmm.
and that essentially all that is super ventilation.
Yeah.
And so, what Wim Hof looks like for any of your listeners who aren't familiar with it, um, is you're doing about 30 to 40 super ventilated breaths. So you can do this, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I personally do it through my mouth and in through my mouth and out from my mouth. But you're doing a big diaphragmatic, so into your belly, inhale in, and then you let it go. You do that 30 to 40 times. And that super ventilation, that's gonna really, rev everything up, gonna give you a
Mm-hmm.
lot of energy. And then to kind of bring it back down on, the 30th or 40th breath, you inhale all the way up, exhale all the way out, and hold.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool doing breath holds. I mean, it definitely, it's something you practice. Like it's breath work for a reason. There's work involved.
Mm-hmm.
Breath holds are so good for you from a physical level, but I think also just from a mental perspective, building trust in your own body, in your own system, and to like push
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a it's still of course in a safe way, but pushing yourself to handle more than you thought you could. Your mind's always going to give up before your body will. And so the breath hold piece is really, really cool. And that's a huge component of the Wim Hof method where you're holding your breath for, maybe when you start 30 seconds, then you bring it up to 45 to a minute and a half, 2 minutes plus. Like it's kind of your max hold that you're working your way up to. And then from there, you inhale through your nose, and then, hold your breath. Could be for 10 seconds. I do it for a minute personally. I really like the hold my breath on an inhale. It helps to increase your lung capacity, which is
Mm-hmm.
the greatest indicator of longevity, interestingly enough. I just like that feeling of like, I can
Yeah.
feel like, my intercostal muscles like
Mm-hmm.
expanding a bit. And then, nice, big, easy breath out. And then you repeat that a few times.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had great experience with Wim Hof. I used to do it like religiously a few years like maybe that was 2 years ago now. And I want to get back to doing it because yeah, I felt so good, like so energized and
Hmm.
yeah, just like the way I felt. With the breath holds though, I want to touch on that. How yeah, let's kind of go actually before we go into breath holds, sorry, I'm jumping around. Let's talk
Okay.
about transformational
Yes.
or the transformation technique. Because you're talking about releasing, yeah, if you had like a bad experience or something adverse happened, how do you kind of release that through
Yes.
breath?
So a lot of times, what that will look like is something called conscious connected breathing. And
Mm,
people may have heard of that as holotropic breathing, rebirthing, soma breathing. Like there's a lot of, variations to it, but essentially all it is conscious connected breathing, which means that you are just breathing in a circle or a wheel. There's no stops at the top or bottom. You can do this, through your nose, through your mouth, but instead, like Wim Hof, you're having a big inhale and then you let it go. Instead, what this looks like is it's just a circle. There's no emphasis on the inhale or the exhale.
mm,
It's just keeping that breath moving. Now, you do that and every body is different when you get into this like trance state. Um, it could be 2 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. It kind of depends on
mm,
your body. But when you're breathing in that way, what you're doing is you're able to bypass that prefrontal cortex in your brain, AKA your ego. So once you bypass that, now you're in the limbic system, which that's where your survival strategies live, your memories, etc. And so when you breathe in this way, and again, when I say it's like closing the loop on a stress cycle, what I mean by that is we're humans, we're mammals, right? We are more evolved than,
Mm-hmm.
other mammals, but we, at the end of the day, we're mammals. So if you look at let's say a dog who almost gets hit by a car, that's a very stressful situation for that poor dog, right? But if you watch that dog afterwards, they are jumping, they're running, they're shaking their body, like they're just like getting that energy
Mm-hmm.
out. And as humans, also mammals, when we have stressful situations happen to us, our bodies are asking for that same thing. However, we don't do it. And, no fault to any of our parents, since the beginning of time, but you learn as young as 2 years old, hey, you're fine, stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to just to learn that, oh, when I feel a big emotion, when I'm stressed out, when I'm sad, when I'm angry, whatever it is, you learn to stuff and store that. And that does live in your body, lives in your fascia, lives way deep in your limbic system, in your memories. And how you can move that energy and close the loop on that is through breath, sound, and movement. And so it's really cool when you start breathing in this way. And just that pattern is what is the most effective to get you into that state. A lot of times, too, there will be some sort of emotional release. And it's not necessarily crying, like it can be laughing, it could be just this insane feeling of euphoria. I've kind of experienced, I do this enough, I've experienced a full range of emotions. And you may then start to feel like, wow, my hips want to move. Like personally for me, my hips are just like moving from side to side because I store a lot in my hips.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that, you start shaking a bit. It's just like a cathartic release. It could be that you want to yell and you have no idea what you're yelling about, but there's just something in you that's like, nope, we got to get this out. Like we finally have this space
Mm-hmm.
to. Our ego isn't pushing this down anymore. We can release this. So it's a really beautiful experience. I think what's really cool about it as well is that, again, you're closing the loop on these stress cycles, but you don't need to explicitly know what you're closing the loop on
Mm.
for it to be effective. So, like myself personally, I usually do know what it is. I'm a pretty visual person and I'll have memories that get unlocked and I'm able to like move through it. But then other people are like, yeah, I just, felt like I saw cool colors and I feel so much lighter and better after. I don't know what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
released. I don't even care. I don't want to know. It was probably pretty heavy, but like it's out of my system now.
That's incredible. That's something, yeah, I've never learned about. And I think, again, I think it's another useful practice to have. Like this, something that we always have access to. That's the beautiful thing
Totally.
too. Like we can
It's in
do
your
this,
breath.
yeah, wherever, anywhere you want, anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what's so amazing about it, and that like anyone literally can do this, which is
Mm-hmm.
so cool. And again, starting small, like you said, like some of these techniques, like even just starting with 2 minutes or 5 minutes, right, can go a long way.
Totally.
And going into that, like what do you say when people are like, I'm kind of bad at whether it's meditation or just breathing in general. I want to start this though. I think it would be helpful. What do you tell them?
Yeah. So, and it does kind of depend on like what their
Yeah.
experience with breath work is. But I think first and foremost, it's just creating a relationship with your breath. So that starts with breath awareness. And, even when I'm working, by the way, with clients I've worked with, even for the last year, before we get into a bigger breathing session, we start with breath awareness, just noticing your breath. You're not trying
Mm-hmm.
to change it, you're not trying to manipulate it, just noticing where it's at, that sensation of your breath coming in and out of your nose. If it's comfortable for you, noticing your heart beating, just starting to build that relationship. I think that's the first step. And it sounds so simple, and almost like a bit like, really? That's how we start this. But It's so important because if you aren't starting to build that connection within your body, you could go straight into a big 3 hour holotropic breathing session, but it's probably not going to have lasting change.
Hmm.
You kind of do need to start a little bit from the basics and build that relationship with your breath. And then from there, the method that I do with my clients is we start with like that nervous system regulation, those flow
Mm.
techniques, just the simple ones, right? And that could be, something called a resonant breath, where you are breathing in for 5 seconds, out for 5 seconds. Or it could be, in for four, out for six, but keeping it around like a 10-second
Hmm.
total breath and just doing that for a few minutes, 10 minutes, have some melodic music behind you, whatever it is. Like that's really helpful just to kind of get you into it. Then we start to, okay, once you know how to calm yourself down, you are aware of your breath, you have started to have a
Hmm.
relationship with it, then that's where we start to do Wim Hof and activate things a bit. And then we can then move into the more transformational, like let's really move some energy. Let's
Yeah.
get some of this out of your system.
I love it. Yeah, and that's very helpful to have those steps that you've laid out. What is happening? Like I know you talked a little bit about obviously like switching from, sympathetic to getting more into that parasympathetic
Mm-hmm.
state. But like what's happening in the body and nervous system during that session?
Yeah. So you mean if we're like if we're like getting into the more like intense stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, when we're talking, yeah, we're getting to the nervous system. And this is more just broadly speaking about the nervous
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens in your nervous system that you really don't have control over aside from your breath.
Mm.
And so it can be a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing where, you say, okay, I know that I'm going to be in a stressful state. Like I'm fearful of public speaking. I know I'm gonna have to make a
Yeah.
presentation. I know that's going to be stressful. So I'm going to do some techniques and some breath work to make sure that I go into that calm,
Mm.
cool, collected. I'm going to proactively get myself into
Yeah.
the right state. It's also can be a reactive where, okay, I made that presentation, um, you know, or I had that difficult conversation, or I did a really hard hit workout, whatever it is, where you're saying, okay, I'm elevated. Um,
Yeah.
and then you're bringing yourself back down. So from a nervous system standpoint, what we're doing is, and I think from a transformational standpoint, and this is really key here when we're manipulating the breath, when we're doing these different techniques, is having an underlying level of safety.
Mm.
So when we're doing that transformational type of breath work and you're able to, bypass your prefrontal cortex, your ego, you're able to access different feelings, memories, emotions, whatever it is, it's only effective if you feel safe.
Mm.
And so, you're putting yourself back into a sympathetic state when you're breathing like this,
Yeah.
like that is hard on your body. There's no way around it. It's hard on your body. But if you are, you're laying on a mat, you have a pillow behind your head, maybe a bolster under your knees, you have a blanket, the room smells good, you're with a facilitator. This is why it is important, I think, to do this therapeutic stuff with a facilitator, not just
Mm.
doing it on your own. I've played around with that, and I'm a breathwork coach myself. When I'm doing this, I do it with somebody else.
Mm.
Um, where that facilitator is creating that safety for you. They're making sure that you are grounded before you start, that you are in your body, that you are feeling good before they're taking you on this journey.
Hmm.
And then because you feel that innate safety, your body is able to release these things that you're
Mm.
holding on to versus like re-traumatizing yourself,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that, again, it's going from that parasympathetic state where you're calm, cool, collected, you feel good, you feel safe. We're then able to add in this activation where we're in a more fight or flight parasympathetic state. But because we have an underlying level of safety, we're able to process things. And then that facilitator is helping you safely come back down,
Hmm.
integrate it, like talk through it if you want to, get back calm, cool, collected versus like, oh, let's stay at this high sympathetic state and
Yeah.
peace out, go about your day.
Yeah.
That's not effective.
Yes. No, I can totally see that, especially to have that guidance with you. Because again, trying this on your own and then, yeah, say you get more stressed and then it's like, how do I
Hmm.
bring myself down? Not able to do that. Having someone like you that's there to help them lower that heart rate, get more relaxed, more safe is so needed. Because I can see
Hmm.
that happening, especially if you're first starting with this stuff. I'm sure it can
Hmm.
be, yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Is there any like misconceptions
About
that,
breathwork.
yeah, just in general?
Um, I mean, I think just from like the basics of it, I think that people think that it needs to be more intense than it actually
Mm,
does. I think especially too, because a lot of people that might be interested in it, they also work out, they either do meditate or try to meditate. They think it's like, okay, this is something that, I have to I have to wear certain clothes for, I have to do in a certain room, whatever. It's your breath. You can do this at any time. And also too, it doesn't need to be for an hour long, like let's say a yoga class.
mm,
It can just be a few minutes, a few breaths. Um, Obviously, like the longer you do it, the more and more of effect you'll have. But it literally could be you are sitting at your desk, you have an important meeting that's coming up, and you just spend 2 minutes breathing in a diaphragmatic, calm, cool, collected way. Maybe you add in a little breath hold, um, and that's all you need.
yeah. Yeah. It doesn't need to be, yeah, like you said, an hour. I think it's a great tool to have during those moments, like you're saying, using it during before a presentation or after the presentation, before your workout, after. What, how often should, realistically though, do you tell someone to practice this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's like starting anything new. You
Yeah.
don't want anyone to feel, I don't know if overwhelmed's the right word, but to feel like it's too much too soon, or it's kind of like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is an annoying habit that I like need. You
Yeah.
never want to feel like a need to do, because that takes away, I think, a lot of the value and benefit of it. It's something that either you like want to do, or it's just a recognition that like this is going to help me, but I don't need to do anything. So it for every person, it's a little bit different what that looks like. From a like in your body to feel the most unstressed, it is 20 minutes a day of resonant
Mm-hmm.
breathing. Is like there's a lot of science behind that. And that resonant
Mm.
breathing again could be in for five, in through your nose, in for five, out for five, and the out can be through your nose or your mouth, or it could be another slight variation to that 10 seconds. So in
Mm.
for four, out for six, 20 minutes a day. However, that's a lot for a lot of people. So that could be you do 5 minutes different times throughout the
Yeah.
day. Maybe you just start by only doing 5 minutes for 2 weeks, and then you
Yeah.
slowly add a minute, every day till you get to a point where you're like, yeah, no, I'm good to do the full amount.
Yeah. I like that too, like breaking it up throughout the day. It could be really useful for a lot of people to not think of, okay, I need to set aside 20 minutes. But if you're actually using it as a tool, like in the morning, maybe
Mm-hmm.
before lunch or after lunch, before you go back to work, and then in the evening, um, could also be a great opportunity to have more times to practice too
Mm-hmm.
throughout the day and see those changes like in your body. Like, how do I feel midday? How do I feel at night? Like
Mm-hmm.
having those little breaks of, yeah, presence and calm and
Mm-hmm.
safety.
Totally.
Do you, so with, our society now and like everything's so fast paced and, social media, like computer, like I just feel like we're constantly online, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you
Yes.
see the breath work fitting into this fast paced world we live in?
I think it's because we're in such a fast paced world where you're just needed all the time. You're everyone is so accessible all the time. I think it makes it even more important. Um, People rarely are in the present moment. So often, it's you're thinking about the future or the past, and it could literally be just I'm thinking about the next hour. It doesn't need to be I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the next 5, 10 years. It's like literally I'm thinking about the next hour. And so I think that makes breathwork even more important, just to give yourself throughout the day a few minutes just to be fully present and in that moment and feeling your body, feeling your breath. etc. And I think too with like social media and stuff, it's a really great way. Social media, say that 10 times
Yeah.
fast, can be, I think, a great way to dissociate. You know,
Mm.
you come back from work and you're like, oh, that was a stressful day. I'm really tired. I'm just going to doom scroll for the next, you think it's going to be 15 minutes, ends up being a few
Yeah,
hours,
like a
right?
few
And
hours. Yeah.
we've all done it. It's so easy to do. It's so
Mm-hmm.
accessible to do. And so what I actually, with a lot of my clients, do specifically work on if they have concerns with their social media use or just that dissociation,
Yeah.
is instead replacing it with breath work first. And so when they have the desire to doom scroll or binge snack or whatever it is that we all have these habits, right?
Yeah.
That we're like, like I can do it sometimes, but I don't love doing it all the time or how much I actually do it. It's adding in a few minutes of breath work just to present yourself. Could be, just a few breaths, could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then from there, decide, okay, now do I want to doom scroll? Now do I want to binge snack? Or instead, do I want to call a friend? Or do I want to
Yeah.
go on a walk? Or whatever it is. It allows you just to center yourself for just a few
Mm-hmm.
minutes and then you can make decisions going from there.
I love that. That's such a great idea, and it's something that again can replace your current, I don't want to say bad habit, but something that you're like
Mm-hmm.
always going to kind of dissociate. And and I think that's so relatable. I mean, like you said, I feel like it's so easy to just grab your phone and scroll, and like
Forever.
it's forever. And it's again, it's kind of creepy how, like, honestly, I feel like it's a part of us or a lot of people. Like it's just something we always have. And so like if we're
Yes.
in like the elevator, like we're grabbing our phone, like it's like all in public rather than like talking to each other, and it's just crazy, right? And so I love that idea of no, put it down, like practice some breath work to at least like have yourself to be more centered to make that conscious choice of what you want to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful.
And what's so cool about breathwork too, like the example of you're, in line at a coffee shop or you're in
Yeah.
the elevator when normally
Yeah.
you'd grab your phone, like barring, some of the more transformational breathwork where
Mm,
you can do breathwork without anybody knowing, like if you're, counting your inhales and your exhales and you're focused on that, or you're doing, slight breath holds or whatever, no one around you needs to know that. And so I think that also makes it like worth doing before you reach for your phone or you reach for something else. It's like no one needs
hmm
to know you're doing this. Just try it and then see if that changes how you want to then approach the rest of that activity or the day.
True. Very true. And I know you touched on this too in the workshop we did, and I want to talk about it again with how does this fit into athletics performance? If you want to touch a little briefly on that, of how we can use that to better our performance and, really help our lung capacity and things like that, and how that contributes to like breath holds too.
Absolutely. Okay. So we touched on earlier in this functional
Mm-hmm.
breathing.
Yeah.
So that is what you should be doing when you're at work, when you're walking around, whatever else. That includes when you're working out. And I think what happens so often with athletes, and I'm an athlete myself, so
Mm-hmm.
I resonate with this, is you forget that. You forget that there's a certain way that you should be breathing. And a lot of times people will go straight into high intensity breathing when your body doesn't actually need it. You don't have the metabolic needs for that. It's more of just a habit. And I
Mm-hmm.
think running or jogging is a really, really good example of this, where I think of this like a gear system. This is how this was, taught to me from a performance standpoint, but it does apply to anxiety or other things
Mm-hmm.
as well. And it's, you know, really trying to stay in these quote unquote lower gears longer. And so while you're working out, that first gear is, and again, all of this is through your diaphragm. So I'm not going to continue to say that, but like it's all
Yeah.
through your diaphragm. That really helps to with stabilizing your core, which and pretty much every exercise is key. But the first gear would be breathing in and out through your nose, but silently, like you do in functional breathing. Um, that's things like you're going on a walk, you're doing a yin yoga, you're doing more gentle exercises. Usually, when we're working out, we're not there very long. We want to start there, but we're not there very long. But then we get into gear two. And most people, from an athletic perspective, will go straight into gear four, where they're breathing hard and heavy. When really we could be in gear two for a lot longer than we think. And so that is still in and out through your nose, but you're adding some activation into it. So you are pulling that air in and pulling that air out. So it will be noisier. Ideally, it's still pretty rhythmic, but like there will be, you can hear it. This would be when you're jogging. Most people do not do this when they're jogging. This is when you're lifting, light to moderate weights, which, as a trainer, you can speak to this more if you see your clients doing
Mm-hmm.
this. But it could be, you're doing a vinyasa yoga class. That's where, we still want to keep in that nasal breathing, that
Mm-hmm.
diaphragmatic breathing. Then you get into gear three, and this is still in through your nose. Again, most people aren't doing this. Still in through your nose, but this time now the metabolic needs support, expelling more of that CO2 faster because there's just more building up. And this helps with that feeling of breathlessness. That's just too much CO2 that's in your body, that feeling of like,
Mm.
oh, I can't breathe. So it's still in through your nose and then out through your mouth. This would be when you're properly running, not sprinting quite yet, but it's beyond a jog. It's when you're running. That's, 45 minutes into a hot vinyasa yoga class. That's when you're lifting heavier weights. Um, Most people skip this step entirely. And it's so, so key to stay there. And then finally, the final gear four, that's your all out effort. You're doing burpees at the end of the workout, you're sprinting, whatever. That's in and out through your mouth.
Mm.
So a lot of people don't stay with these gears.
Yeah.
And part of why, these gears in particular, or just, breathing in through your diaphragm, in through your nose is so important is because when you're breathing in through your nose, and this is where I'll get into a little bit of the science of it, if that's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so when you're breathing in through your nose, it helps to filter warm and humidify the air. So you're just breathing in cleaner air. If you're working out outside in particular, like kind of depends on where you live, but air unfortunately isn't always the cleanest. So just having that cleaner air is just really helpful and healthier. But through your nose is where you're able to produce nitric oxide. And so what that's doing, that nitric oxide, and this doesn't happen through your mouth, only through your nose, but it helps to improve that oxygen uptake and greater blood flow to your muscles, which is huge.
That is huge. Yeah.
Um, it's huge. It also helps to reduce fatigue. And again, this is from breathing through your nose. And if you think about it too, right? If you are breathing through your nose, a lot of times, and then just naturally, when you breathe through your nose, you're able to access your diaphragm. You really can't do that through your mouth. Um, you're taking longer and slower breaths. So it's just less energy you're having to use to breathe versus through your mouth. A lot of times it's straight into your chest. Your shoulders might lift. It's like a very like active process, which, just leads to fatigue faster. So breathing through your nose just helps, with that fatigue and getting tired. It helps with your endurance. And from a nervous system perspective, if the longer you can remain calm, cool, collected, the longer you can last. You can only be breathing in this high sympathetic state for a certain amount of time before your body's like, yeah, no, we're tired, we're checked out, too much. We ran from the tiger and now we're done. You can only do it for so long. So from breathing through your nose is huge just to have that endurance and sustain your workouts longer. But any thoughts on that? And then I'll touch on breath holds.
Yeah, I love that you went into the science of it because again, it just allows people to understand how important it is to breathe through your nose. I know, again, I experimented with this when I like was running more and like on the bike and like doing a little bit more longer duration
Mm-hmm.
cardio. It is wild. Like I'll just look at my heart rate and when I'm breathing through my nose and like kind of really focusing on as best as I can having longer like slower breathing through my nose and out through my nose, even though it's really so hard. Like I feel like I'm
Yeah,
dying, but like my heart
it
rate
takes
goes down.
practice. It
Yeah,
takes
it takes
practice.
practice, but like I can notice my heart rate getting lower by even like 2 or 3 beats,
Yep.
which is like obviously right so much more beneficial and like you're less fatigued, like I can go longer
Hmm.
and but yeah, there's also that mental piece. I don't know if like you've noticed this, but like if I know I'm like working really hard and my heart rate's higher, I'm like, no, I'm calm. Like I'm actually safe. Like if we can lower my heart
Hmm.
rate more, right? Like there's that mental piece too.
Totally.
Like telling your body like, no, we can lower our heart rate. Like we're okay. Like
Hmm.
I don't know what it is, but it works for me sometimes. And I don't know if that just
No,
centers me. Yeah.
well, it's the nervous system regulation. Like when you
Okay.
breathe through your nose into your
Yeah.
diaphragm, like that is how you enact that parasympathetic state or that rest and digest
Mm-hmm.
state. Obviously, when you're running,
Yeah.
you have the
Yes.
metabolic needs, so you're not like, oh, let me run and I'm gonna fall asleep as I'm running.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that's not how it works, but it does help to balance. And so my experience with it, because I don't think that most people, when they're running,
Yep.
let's say, breathe through their nose, because it's hard, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little bit for your body to get used to it. And so my background is I, in high school, ran cross country and track. I've, been a runner kind of off and on my whole life, but I've, about 6 months or so ago, I was definitely in a I have not run in a while
Mm-hmm.
state. And so I was like, all right, it's time to get back into it. And so the first run I took, I just ran how I normally would, which is immediately I go from zone or the gear one to gear four immediately,
Yeah.
in and out
Yeah.
through my mouth. This first run, and again, I'll make the excuse of, oh, I just moved back to Colorado, and there's higher
Yeah. I mean,
altitude, it's
it's
harder to
hard. Yeah.
breathe, whatever. I'll make that excuse, right? So I made it 2 miles
Mm-hmm.
and my face was so red. I was so gassed. I was like, why am I doing this? This isn't fun. This like hurts. And, the air is just like in Colorado
Yes.
in particular, is just thinner and it
Yes.
hurts. It hurts your lungs. Right. So, I am a breathwork coach and I tell my clients when they're exercising to breathe through the nose. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should do the same. So the next day, same time, ate the same thing before, same weather, I go on a run and I told myself, like, we are committed, Courtney, we are committed to only breathing in and out through our nose, or at least just in through the nose. Again, you can
Yeah.
go to that zone or that's either zone or gear three where you go out your mouth, but like in, always through the nose. Same, variables leading into it. Just I changed my breathing. I was able to go 4 miles. My face wasn't red. I was so calm, cool, collected the rest of the run, and I went faster. So I went longer and faster. Now, the first, and you've probably experienced this, Sarah, when you've done it,
Yeah.
the first few minutes suck. Like there's no way around it. Especially when you're not used to it, the first few minutes suck. And what's important there is to not let your competitive nature, your ego get in the way and just slow down. Like slow
Mm-hmm.
down those first, few minutes, that first mile, whatever it is, whatever your body needs to feel comfortable breathing in and out through your nose. So you might be going, especially when you're getting used to this, you're going to start by going a way slower than you want to,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just your body getting used to it. And then eventually your nasal passages are going to expand pretty significantly. You can also help this by using nasal strips to like really puff
Mm-hmm.
them out. But eventually your body is going to say, oh, she's not letting us breathe through our mouth. We need to adapt. Your body is incredibly adaptable. So then and again, whether this is a run or lifting or any other cardio, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same idea, but I just use running as the example. Your nasal passages are going to increase pretty significantly. So it's going to get easier. And then when you're breathing in through your diaphragm, you're engaging your core in a way that it's hard to otherwise, which is very helpful for athletic performance. And then you're just more calm, cool, collected, as you were saying. So you're just in a better
Yeah.
headspace to keep going. And you're getting
Mm-hmm.
fuller oxygen too. So you're getting more oxygen into all your cells, into your muscles. So it helps significantly.
Oh my gosh, it's wild. It's so cool. And again, like you said, it's so hard in the beginning, and that's why like being patient and like not being
Mm-hmm.
so competitive with yourself, like slow down, focus just on the breathing. And I mean, that's what's crazy about it too, is like you see the benefit of like your body adapts each time
Yes,
better.
totally.
Even just with traditional, breath holds or whatever breath work, like the repetitive nature, right? You get better every time you do it, which is
Mm-hmm.
also rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
So it's like, it's just channel that competitiveness like in a
Yes.
slightly different way. You get to
Yes.
slow down to speed up.
Exactly. And then, yeah, with the breath holds, building up that CO2 tolerance, explain that a little bit more of like why that's beneficial for us to practice for longevity.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of people think that carbon dioxide is a waste gas, but you actually need it for efficient breathing and oxygen delivery. So, being able to get all of the oxygen to your cells so you can perform better, you need the CO2 to do that. So, when you over breathe, so that could be the your CO2 levels drop. So when you have low CO2, it's a lot harder for that oxygen to be released efficiently to your muscles and organs. And that's when you feel that like air starvation or being lightheaded or anxious or fatigued. It's just like, oh, we are like our CO2 where it's dropping too fast for it to remain, for the oxygen to remain efficient in our body. And so instead, if you're, able to just maintain this, like the healthy CO2 levels, then the oxygen gets released more efficiently, improves your endurance without increasing your breath rate. It also really helps with energy and stamina, um, as well as that nervous system regulation and recovery and adaptation. So once you finish the workout or that exertion, if you're doing a hit workout, it's, whenever you're taking little breaks in between what you're doing, helping to restore that CO2 balance really helps to lower your heart rate. It reduces that lactic acid buildup and it just brings your body back into rest and repair more quickly. So the thing with CO2, right now I was just sharing, it being a healthy balance with your CO2. To be able to improve that balance, you have to increase your CO2 tolerance. So that's how the breath holds play into all of this. By breath holding, you're able to increase that CO2 tolerance. The easy way to think about it is more CO2 tolerance, more resilience in your
Mm.
body. And that could be from an athletic performance standpoint, that could be from a stress standpoint. Your ability to adapt to stress is resilience within your body, within your nervous system. So breath holds are one of the best and most adaptive ways to do this. So something we had talked about in the workshop, and this is just a really good exercise for it, is just to first figure out what your baseline looks like. Same with,
Yeah.
when you're starting to do any breath work, of that awareness of your breath, like what's the starting point? And
Mm.
all that looks like doing is breathing in through your nose, breathing out on the exhale, holding your breath, and then just counting how long that is. Which we did that in the workshop, and I think everyone was a little bit surprised of where
Yeah.
where they're at. Um, Ideally, and this is a little crazy to me, but just that the science supports it. Ideally, for an adult, you should be able to hold your breath for 40 seconds without before you feel air hunger, which
Mm.
is a lot, right? And it's not like, oh, how long, like, what's your max hold? How long can you hold
Yeah.
your breath? It's you, quote unquote, should be able to hold your breath for 40 seconds before your stomach starts clenching or fluttering. You get that little like throat
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I need to breathe. 40 seconds, which a lot of people are, maybe less than 10 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But that 40 seconds, that's the measure that you're breathing functionally throughout the day, that you have this really good CO2 tolerance and resilience. And so it's very much something that you can train your body to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
I on all of my walks, I don't do it for any more than like 5 minutes at the most, because it's not
Yeah.
comfortable, but I just do it throughout the day. But I like to do it while I'm walking, just so it's something to do while I'm walking. Is I'll breathe in, breathe out, hold the bottom, and I just count my steps. And then I slowly just start to like add another step, add another step. Sometimes I might need to backtrack a few steps. Like I just do whatever feels good in my body, but it helps you to increase that CO2 tolerance.
Mm.
So that way you can just manage stress in a workout or in life a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done it walking before, and there's something about, again, you're focusing on step. I don't know, like that while you're doing an exercise or like moving, I
Hmm.
find it a little bit easier rather than
Yes.
like I'm sitting there holding my breath. I'm like
That was a long
keep
5 seconds.
holding. Yeah, how long has it been? Like,
Yeah.
so it
Hmm.
gives you something else to focus on is, yeah, I found it to be a little bit easier. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard, like
It's
especially
hard.
when like you first do it, you're like, "Oh my God, 40 seconds doesn't sound like that long." And then you do it, you're like, "Oh my God, I got like 10, 20." Like it's yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
But each time, like at least what I've noticed too, like it's always usually the second or third time that I've done it, like in one day. The first one's always bad, but then like the second or third I always improve. Um,
Yeah,
which is good, but it's so hard.
it is. Well, and also too from a performance standpoint, because it is hard. You are,
Yep.
you know, holding your breath. Where it's really helpful for athletic performance is you're putting yourself into the state that you would be at the end of a race, let's say, or the end of a big workout, the end of the triathlon, the end of the high rocks, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. And so the more your body is used to that too, the more it's going to help you on race day.
Yeah. And help you, yeah, like you said, become more resilient, like
Mm-hmm.
adaptable to manage that stress. Like, no, we're fine. Like, I have enough oxygen. Like, I can,
Yeah,
yeah, maintain this. I'm safe. Yeah. So
exactly.
crazy. And I thought there was one more question, but maybe not. That was like the main, yeah, I wanted to really touch on the breath holds because, again, I think a lot of people aren't aware of how important that is to build up your CO2 tolerance and really
Mm-hmm.
practice that. And also becoming aware of your breath, like during the day, but not only that, but also during your workouts. Because, yeah, I see it all the time in the gym or just with clients too, like right into that heavy breathing when
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, we're safe. Like, that's why, during your rest breaks, like really just paying attention to your breathings in through the nose, out through the nose, like allow that
Mm-hmm.
heart rate to go down, is so crucial before
It's
you
so
perform,
crucial.
yeah, your next set.
Yeah. Yeah, because then yeah, if you're in a hit workout and then or heavy lifting or
Yeah.
whatever, and then you continue to breathe like you're still running or lifting, you're just gassing yourself way
Yeah.
sooner than you need to be.
Yeah, they need to be. It's a great tool for all of
Hmm.
it.
But it takes practice. Like it's not just like, oh, I'm now going to do breath work. I'm a breath work person, and now I have adapted my body in the correct way. Like it does take work.
Yes. Continued work. Yeah, you're exactly
Continued
right.
work. Hmm.
Um, because yeah, I think every day is different too. Like, right, we're constantly evolving, changing, have different demands on like our schedule, our work,
Hmm.
different stressors throughout the day. So like it's not just yeah, like you're saying, like one day you do it or a week and then you're fine. It's like
Hmm.
you need to continue to practice it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this was amazing, Courtney. Where can
Yeah.
listeners find you? And like like what are some offerings that you have or how can the listeners find you to work with you?
Yes. So you can find me on my Instagram. I have a TikTok as well. That's a
Ooh,
that's a
okay.
new a new thing I'm
Good
doing.
for you. I cannot do TikTok.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. But no, so it's at Surge Flow Breath is my handle for everything, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, my website as well. And you can book a consultation with me there too. My offerings, I do one on one coaching. That's the primary thing I do, as well as some group coaching or workshops. If anyone wants to bring me into their company or their gym or whatever, we can do one off workshops. And then I'm excited to announce that I'm in 2026 going to start hosting retreats. And so these would
Ooh.
be more of like the transformational type of breath work.
Hmm.
I'm like, we're really into that container. But I'm excited to announce that.
That's amazing. That's exciting. Do you have any
Yeah.
locations planned
So
or
I
that you'd like to?
found,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I found this amazing space that's in Wyoming.
Mm.
That's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, and it's absolutely stunning and would be great for breath work.
Well, yeah, definitely keep me posted. I would, yeah, love to share that and maybe, yeah, even come. I love Wyoming. It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Yes, yes. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes so people can find you. And if someone is breathwork curious but hesitant, is there one message you kind of want to leave them with?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I would just say that if you're hesitant, like we all are for trying anything new, all you need to do is start small.
Hmm.
Again, it's something that's with you all the time. It's your breath. Like you need it to live. And so it's one of the most rewarding relationships you can build within yourself, but it doesn't need to be crazy. Just start small.
I love that. Okay, and then my last final question that I ask every guest, sorry, I'm so sorry about this, is this podcast, my goal with it is to really help the audience, let go of their fears, lean into growth, and transform in every aspect of their life and health and wellness. What's something that you took a leap of faith or grew and had to get out of your fears to step into?
Starting this business.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I left the corporate world that I knew and had been thriving in and growing, and it's just ironic that through this work of breath work, it helped me to then do what I actually now want to do and I'm very passionate about doing. Um, so yeah, it was that, just
That's
starting this
amazing.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so rewarding. And yes, it's a lot of work, but like, again, you're changing and impacting so many people's lives with the breath work. Like, I'm so grateful that, yeah, I took your workshop and met you and can't wait for your retreat. I would love to learn more about
Yeah,
that because I think
absolutely.
that'd be super fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here.
of
And
course.
yeah, it was so much fun.
Yes. No, thank you.